Welcome to The Inner Wonder. I'm Alex and I'm your host.
Hi thinkers. Today we have a chat with Jerry Daykin. Jerry studied at the University of Cambridge economics, and then over the last 20 or so years he has developed himself into a media leader, a person with rich career in marketing and specialization on media. He has worked in big corporations ranging from Mondelez, Diageo, GSK, Burger King, which is where we met. I had the privilege to have a dotted line to Jerry when he was my manager. But besides a very successful corporate career, Jerry has always been, and that's very fascinating, been always involved in extra stuff, always related to your passion of media. You can find him at times speaking at various conferences, going around the world, sharing his passion about inclusivity and inclusive marketing.
Indeed.
And that's where he also wrote this book, Inclusive Marketing, and contributed a chapter to the book called Eat Your Greens, which is one of the most famous books for marketing, chapter 8. And just to show a little bit of this, of his curiosity to just, besides a successful corporate career, to always just do more and more things. Jerry, this is a very rich CV. It's quite a lengthy introduction.
Thank you. Very kind.
And thank you for being here. But as I usually start, if I was to remove your CV from you and asked you, who are you? What would you say?
Who am I? I'd say I'm a gay man making sense of the world. No, I think professionally, without my CV, I'm someone who loves finding new and challenging things that perhaps the world doesn't totally understand yet, and working out what we need to do with them. So I think the reason I got involved in digital and media and social first was because of all the things in marketing. It was kind of the bit that people didn't know what to do with yet. Like there was a path well trodden of being a brand manager, and there was this crazy, weird social digital stuff at the side. And I was like, that's the bit I want to go fish around in, work out what's happening and experiment with. So that reflects a lot in my work and my career, but I think it reflects in my personal life as well, in like always wanting to get involved in interesting topics, interesting things, test things out, try new experiences. So maybe I'm some sort of explorer in a very digital geeky way.
I can definitely see that. I think what came to my mind as you were talking is your very recent passion that you have an insane channel that you're just experiment with AI and you do like music contest.
There's something of a slippery slope in my mind, which is that when I start trying something, I just want to keep trying it and pushing it. So AI is a thing you can do now.
Yes,
so like many people, I started with like, oh, can I make a fun image of myself as a toy doll, or can I create some funny piece? And then it just sort of grew from that to sort of experimenting in what can sort of, I try and tenuously say there was like a work reason for like wanting to understand it. It was more just like, these technologies are emerging, what on earth can you do with it? Started playing around with different tools to create images, to create videos, to create music, and I was like, boom, put it all together. And I have for quite a long time been an oddly big fan of the Eurovision Song Contest, and it seemed like an obvious, with hindsight, obvious step would be to create an entirely AI version of the Eurovision Song Contest, in which AI looked at previous entries, worked out what countries should send, wrote the song, created the videos, put it all together. So it turns out you have to do quite a lot of work to get the AI to get there. But yeah, no real reason other than it was quite fun and interesting. Though on a good day, you can bring out some tenuous things that I've learned along the way in terms of what's good prompting and bad prompting, how AI thinks about things, even a bit about how like what works well, what doesn't work on social channels. But really, I just found it quite fun. I find it fascinating when you put a prompt in, the kind of the thrill of seeing what might come back. What does the AI see things the same way you see things? And I think there are interesting times in which you have a really strong idea of what someone might understand from your prompt, and actually the AI totally misunderstands it, which maybe we could take into an analogy for real life, where if people don't have the same context, don't have the same view, don't have the same expectations, different things can come out. I learned a lot. Why not, I say? If you've got a passion, give it a try.
Seems like Jerry, curiosity has been is an important value for you, and it's something that drives you. Did it change across the year? Do you recall, like, were you like that as a kid? Were you like that at uni? Was it across your career? I mean, you did mention that you entered this world of digital out of curiosity, so I would assume it has been with you since forever.
I was always, I would sort of self-diagnose myself as having something a little bit like ADHD, or something where you're like always wanting to be trying something else, always wanted to try something new. I was quite a successful student, but also a student who got very easily distracted and tried new things. So even when I was at school, I chaired like a young enterprise company, which is when, like, as students you come together and you run a company. I was experimenting. It was the early days of web design and things, and I was never a coder, but you had tools, front page and things where you could, with basic stuff, be able to create a website. And I created websites for, actually, my brother was really into a computer game, and I created a website so he could create a league of it, and slightly random things like that. Which, and then when I was at college, at uni, I became the IT officer. I made the college website, even though I was at a uni where, there were whole people doing IT, and so you should be better qualified for this. But it was an elected position, which shows that maybe not always the best candidates are elected. But the college did have a website, and at the time it was perfectly functional. And yes, I've always kind of enjoyed slightly experimenting. I found the other day, I fell slightly accidentally into marketing. Like, I did economics because I enjoyed it. At Cambridge, I found it a bit too mathematical, which all my teachers told me I would. And so I pivoted a bit and did the second half of my degree focused more on like social, political sciences, which is accidentally like the perfect marketing degree. Like, how do people spend their money, and how do they think? How do they think in groups, etc. And I think through all that kind of accidental thing, when I look back, I found this box of like old drawings and sketches and stuff. I mean, I can't draw, so you wouldn't be impressed by them. But I used to imagine like a made-up brand that I used to have this company like Daycorp, and I was like, let's design a car, let's design a brand. I was always like interested in that kind of more so in how you tell stories and sell, and I wasn't that interested in learning how to build a car. That's fine, but I like the idea of I'll give it a name, give it a brand, get people to want it, kind of thing. So for every reason, and my mum, when I went to mum, she tells a story. When I was young, I had like a tape recorder, and I used to like try and record record songs and stuff on the radio. But one day she caught me like recording the jingles off the TV ads. So I was like, but this is a really good song. And she's like, it's the Toys R Us jingle or something. It was good. Bring back jingles, I say. Very effective marketing.
Of course. I do remember quite a few from my childhood. That was just so random, just like, but they stuck in your head.
They really went out of fashion, and yet any research about them shows they work really, really well. People think they're not cool, they're not catchy, but if you can get with a good jingle, you're done for life.
As you were speaking, I was thinking, and sometimes it's also a challenge I sometimes face within myself, right? So you are definitely super curious about things, right? You want to do things, and then you also had like a very successful corporate career. But a lot of the things you've described that you did as curiosity, it was just like for fun. Right, like going back to designing a website for your brother to play a game, or even now that you're doing like this kind of music competition. It's like it's not directly related to your career, but somehow then of course you find learnings that you. How do you balance this idea? Because oftentimes with me, maybe an idea comes to me, but then I'm thinking, but would this really benefit me? Like, would this really drive my career forward, or is it just going to be like a waste of my time? How do you balance?
Yeah, I mean, first thing to say, it's definitely totally fine and a good idea to have like hobbies and interests and passion points that are not part of a well-constructed career narrative. And I like traveling and watching films and walking my dog and stuff, none of which I think has as direct a link to career success. Yeah, I think there is a balance. I think most of those things I did them because I enjoyed them, etc. And I didn't have some. I could write with history. You can look back and write an arc.
Of course.
At the time, for sure, I didn't. But even in doing them, I did know that like the internet seemed to be quite an important thing, and so learning how to make websites and how to play in that space was probably a good idea. And it meant that when I first started in marketing, actually my first job I got in marketing was I worked for a small charity, and that was a great opportunity for me because they were hungry to have graduates and things, and they gave me a lot more responsibility than a graduate ever should have. It's kind of the Burger King way as well, get great talent and take a chance on them. And I managed to move into like a more corporate big world at Cadbury's in like quite a big jump, because at that time basically no one knew anything about like digital and social marketing. And although most of my experience in that was like, I'd run a blog and I'd built a website and I'd helped a charity, like you were slightly stretching what you'd done, but in the kind of room where at the time I ran a blog. It was a Tumblr at the time, about like what brands were doing in social media marketing, and I was kind of like soaking it up and learning a bit about it. And in the world of like when I was interviewing for a job to like do social for Cadbury's, there weren't many people who kind of had solid degrees, a bit of marketing experience, fit the quite corporate culture, who also knew anything about social media, digital marketing. So those things, and I think with the AI stuff. I mean, a massive part of it is, for me, it's a real shutdown of the brain. I find it quite therapeutic, interesting, fun, slightly addictive, actually, so you have to control it a little bit. But I am quite conscious that AI is coming to change our lives one way or another. I use it a little bit in my work, in my job, because partly of some of the projects I'm working on, some of what I'm focusing on, like my current company does do some big AI stuff, but it's not a huge, massive focus of what I do.
Right.
And I was kind of like, well, if I'm not working on stuff that's like testing out and learning in that space, in a couple of years' time, I'm going to be like so out the loop. And so I've been to conferences where some of my other people who work in media are talking about some of the stuff they're doing. And that encourages me to look for ways of doing it in my day job. But I do quite consciously think this is a technology, something I should be experimenting with, something I should be learning about. And that gives you balance. Because it is fun, but at the same time, like we have conversations now around like, how we can use AI to better create or adapt at least certain creative.
Right.
And when we had a creative agency the other day who did that, and the kind of questions and the stuff I know about that is like 100x what it would be, because I've experimented with different models. I've experimented with different prompts and briefs and what works and what doesn't work. So somehow it gloriously comes together. I think, for a long time I was a big fan of the Eurovision Song Contest, and it had zero benefit to my life or anything other than being quite fun. And I think that was also okay. Although, I did once get a company to sponsor it, so, everything comes back together.
I appreciate that comment, because I personally had a lot of this inner dilemma, but more and more I come to the realization that if you have a passion for something, if you have a curiosity about something, then just go ahead with it, and then you never know where it will lead, because you have no idea. You might think X, but so many things might come out of that.
Yeah.
And there is different ways, and ultimately, if you do things that you like, you'll find a way to merge them.
100%.
And of course, you said with AI, which is a very fun topic, AI. I mean, we're going to get today to the topic of AI. There is a lot of discussion.
Lots of good stuff, lots of bad stuff. Are we ruining the world? Is it a disgrace against all things creative and art?
Exactly,
Even in running that project, a few of the posts that have gone a bit more viral to wider audience, you get a real mix of like, this is the most amazing thing ever. It's AI slop. You're destroying the world. This is the opposite of the spirit.
But if you were
of
mentioning that at one point someone told you that one of the songs you created with AI was playing at a bar in Spain.
Yes, there was some weird. So my weird AI song contest, which I did it over Christmas. I created all the songs over like a week's time at Christmas, and then stretched it out and pretended it took me a month, 5 months or something. And I just did it for fun. And then a couple of the fairly early, like I posted a bunch of stuff that a couple of hundred people saw, and then there was a post about the Spanish entry that for whatever reason got like 200,000 views on TikTok.
Right.
And most of the people who follow us that contest are Spanish, and Spain won, so maybe, you know, got some bias voting. But suddenly we got big, and suddenly everyone was asking me, like, how do I get involved? Can I submit? I wanted to be a part. And suddenly I was like, oh wow, there's this whole thing. And a couple of weeks later, it was a gay bar sort of in Spain, but like this guy sent me this like video on TikTok of like, oh my God, they're playing the song. And I mean, within reason, I think it's had like 20,000 plays on something on Spotify or something. So it's like,
that's crazy.
It's not,
that's crazy.
It's not anywhere pop, it's not anywhere smash hit or anything, but like 20,000 people have like listened to some random thing you created. It's quite, over 4 million people have watched, or 4 million impressions.
That's insane, because it shows like a lot how you just do something for fun and things go out. And I want to discuss again, because AI overall is a thing that, currently I am personally reading a lot about it.
Yeah.
And I've already been debating a lot about, you know, the ethics behind it, where it will go and stuff. And potentially that could be in another podcast episode, which is not the focus of today.
Can you make an original AI song? Probably not. You're copying somebody else's stuff. Yeah.
Not the focus of today. I think what I'm really impressed is that you just took something that was fun, something that was curious and that was trending, and like you did something pretty cool. And then in your job, a lot of the times you discuss about how do we push things to reach higher impression, to reach a higher reach. And here you are personally experimenting with it, which I think is like super cool.
And you learn about that in the stuff that like some video. One of the things is it was a hobby, it was a fun. So I was never that invested in it being that successful.
Of course.
I think if you wanted to make it more of your life, you would analyze to the very inch everything you did. But to an extent, I would notice like, well, this one worked really well and this one didn't. Like the ones that I used to have more of like a Eurovision style, like here's the song, it's Spain, let's go. And like no one watched it because nobody sat through the 5 seconds of like, so you learn, you start with like, you always start with the chorus kind of thing. Any song that started with any song that had like a normal song, it takes a minute and a half to reach the peak. Doesn't work. And content, like, anything that had like a long zooming in and like great, which it's really hard to get AI to do well, and I'd be super proud of it, dead. Just straight on someone's face, someone talking, and that stuff is all true of the adverts and the content we make. Because you stop at the people who are in this very flick through environment. They've no idea what the hell this weird thing is. It needs to be fun. It needs to be catchy. It needs to like straight away grab them. So those kind of things were, and then there were times when I would then follow that exact footprint and it would just die a death. And I was like, well, okay, it's still a bit of an algorithm thing. Yeah, and I find that useful. I'm not saying every day I come into work now and I have actually in one presentation I went to Mexico and Brazil, and I was talking about how much AI is disrupting things, and I was kind of getting here's an example in Europe where someone created a whole song contest out of AI. I wonder who that could be. Moving on. So it is interesting to learn, and especially on like social media, people are often like, you only learn this stuff by doing it yourself. I did a live stream for one part of it, and like stuff where you just practically working out how you set up and do it. Like that's not really my day job, but understanding a bit more of it is quite useful.
I think it's pretty inspiring. It's pretty cool. I mean, the best way, I think the most inspiring way to teach is you continue to learning. Yeah. And I'm saying that because we started working together when I joined your team, and I had maybe zero is even too much to say of knowledge.
Everyone has some knowledge of media. We all watch and consume media. So.
Like very, very limited knowledge of media, and basically almost everything I've learned was from you on that
risky knowledge base.
But one of the cool things is because you also never stop learning, right? So it's an approach to teach, which I find I think very cool.
Media, almost any subject, almost any profession you have, is continually learning and evolving. I think media over my career has been an extreme form of that, because when I was starting, we still spent like 80-90% of our media on like traditional TV out of home, It dates me slightly, but people were still faxing orders for things. It was, faxes were not normal at the time, but for whatever reason, that was still part of the process. And now we live in this crazy world of digital, like it's changed so much. People haven't changed that much, but kind of the channels you use and things are. So the need to keep learning. I mean, I now work in like a regional global role. Like I'm quite far away from ever actually like buying media. I mean, it's been like 15, 20 years of my life since it was my job to actually like set up and buy a media campaign.
Right.
But even on that, I always bang on how important reach is and things. And some people used to think they were like really clever and they call me out like, if reach is so important, why don't you put any advertising and media behind your own posts? And I'm like, of course I do. On my Eurovision Song Contest, I put money behind it. Like,
I do remember that conversation, Jerry.
Manage expectation. But every year of my professional career, I probably spent 100 quid, 1 to 200 quid over the course of the year on, like, maybe I post one thing on LinkedIn, or when I first started the TikTok, I was like, well, it's for fun, but I do want someone to see it. So I like did promotion to like get my first 200 followers or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, and partly that was like, because I have a genuine KPI for more people to see it. But also I enjoyed the fact that to do that, I had to log in, I had to go to Meta ads, I had to go to TikTok ads, I had to see like, what are my options, like, who can I target? What can I set up? What does that look like? Oh, there's the curves where you can see the different reach. You can play around with it. I think it's kind of healthy if you work in digital or media or marketing, I think not to be so far removed from that you couldn't actually buy a campaign if you had to.
Right.
So I still learning, and that changes every year. That interface changes, the options change.
Of course.
It's good to stay curious.
Yeah, no, of course. Super important to stay curious. And definitely it has worked very nicely for you, like that curiosity to keep learning. And you've led teams of many people, times 25 people. You've worked in so big companies and like led media, drive a lot of growth. When you look back, what would you say is one thing you feel like you've done pretty well across your roles in order to make sure your teams work well, make sure that your teams keep learning as well, because as you said, it's an evolving field, right? Always. So what is like one thing you look back and you say, I did that well?
I think I would say culture. I think within any businesses have a culture, but within any business's culture, you have your team and you have your team within a team, and there's always a chance to create your own bubble within that.
Right.
And I think I'd be, I'm very proud as someone who works in marketing that I've delivered great business results and fantastic end of year results and, driven growth and sales and stuff. But the thing I'm probably most proud about is, is the fact that I've done that in a way that builds a positive culture.
Right.
Like I still have like 3 different WhatsApp groups with like people who used to be on my team, or we go for dinner once a year, or some of them I still work with in slightly different ways. I even have a slightly weird situation where someone I made redundant is still like a friend. I see once or twice a year and we have chat. Because for me, business is business, but it's also personal. I think creating a good culture is how you get the most out of a team, out of people. Right. And I think working media is an interesting topic, because whatever company you work with, whether some of these companies, Mondelez in particular, is a marketing-led. Diageo, they're marketing-led companies. You walk into the building, marketing runs that company. They're the most important jobs. They make the big decisions. They make money. You're surrounded by hundreds of marketers. Even in that world, media is like a slightly strange niche of like the people who know all this digital technical stuff. The
geeks of marketing.
We think of ourselves as quite cool, but let's be honest, no one wanted to eat with us when we were at school having lunch. Maybe we're the geeks of marketing, because some of it is more like data-led, it's less creative, it is more technical. And so you're always in this even in that world, you're in this like small world of we're the media folks, and sometimes you have a big central team, or sometimes you're just like when I had a bigger team at GSK, like 15 of those people were like across the whole of Europe, Middle East and Africa. So those people are like individual. I have one person in Turkey who's the only person in that office of several hundred people who really knows that much, or possibly anything at times about media. And so creating a kind of community of those people where A, you support and learn from each other, and B, you have a bit of therapy where you're like, oh my gosh, this is insane. Why does nobody get this kind of stuff? Yeah. I think is really important, and you do that in small. I mean, you can do it in grand gestures, like try and have a big team annual event and stuff. But you do it in small ways, in terms of how you bring yourself to work, how you try and be. I mean, I like thinking all these things. I'm professional, but you can still be professional and a bit relaxed, a bit fun, a bit open about who you are. Right. I think that is, and it's in my current role. I don't manage many people, and I do miss slightly that opportunity to a culture, and within that a culture which isn't. I'm not just saying it's a fun party culture. It's a culture that is like it wants to learn, that encourages people to want to get out there, learn new things, that encourages people to test. You know, if I had my favorite thing was when someone on my team would be like, oh, I really want to like learn about this thing or try this new project, or I know it's not really my scope, but can I? Yes, yeah, absolutely, you should do that, and it will help the whole team if you do.
Of course.
And being, having people on my team. Who I saw grow in that company, who I saw leave to go to a better, who are now like way more senior than me. There's a fabulous lady at MasterCard who's now like SVP of like everything they ever do, and once upon a time I managed her, and I'm like, that is like an awesome thing for me, because she was kick-ass when I managed her, and I had very small role, I'm sure, in her career. She's very capable of driving that herself. But for some part I played in that, I'm it's like, that's a good feeling. Yeah. And to have like, a scattering of alumni from the Jerry Daykin team of being a part of it. It's a good thing to have. Yeah.
Jerry, so I promise this is not staged. I promise this is not staged. But you gave me an awesome pass to actually something I really wanted to talk about, which I think for me, with the time we've interacted together, it's what I take away the most. Within that, so within every episode of the Inner Wonder podcast, we have what we call a muse. Okay, so muses, according to ancient Greek mythology, were sources of inspiration. They used to use them to create plays, like the theaters, etc. And every time there was always a muse, like a source of inspiration, right? And of course, for this episode, you are the muse for us, right?
God, we're in real trouble.
And the specific topic that I am inspired by you and I wanted to chat with you today, it's about fun. It's about fun. It's about creating a positive culture, which you very nicely gave me a great pass. Although I was like, this is ruined a bit the flow, but it's perfect. And within that, I wanted to, so I made some research for today that I wanted to bring in the discussion to help us in our chat. So what has been very unique seeing you at the office as a leader is that
I actually had sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I had my mid-year review today, and one of the literal things my boss said to me is that you're really fun, and you bring good energy. And partly to that because we've just done a reorganization, and now we're moving to another team, and she was kind of like, the fact that you bring that energy
100%.
makes this whole change that we're going through easier. Anyway, as you were, very important research.
No, 100%. And so as I was saying, I've always seen you in a very, you always push positivity, always make jokes, always try to keep the environment much more relaxed, no need to add extra stress. Within that, I've always been impressed by regardless your level and your position, you treat every single one in the office in the same way, regardless of whether they are like 5 levels below you, 5 levels above you. It's something I find super nice. And at times it made me think, why aren't people more fun at work? Because many people are fun outside work. Why aren't they fun at work? And before we get there, I want to bring that research on this topic is overwhelmingly, has reached this conclusion that fun at work drives productivity, engagement, and very good results. One great paper, Fun and Friends, 2014, Michael Tuse, he made that research and he divided fun in 3 categories, which I found it very interesting. So he said, there's 3 types of fun in an organization. One is fun that comes from the organization. So that's holiday parties, etc., etc.
Organized fun.
Exactly, the organized fun. Then, secondly, he discussed about manager-led fun. So when the manager, the leader of the group, promotes fun within the group, within the discussions. And then the third fun is the fun you have with your colleagues as friends, that you have an enjoyable environment. And what he found is that manager-led fun, as well as the fun you have with your colleagues as friends, are the two key important drivers for people engagement, low retention. Within that, there's been a lot of research from other papers that try to understand why does fun lead to that. And then there is a paper that basically made that route of from fun to get to productivity, you have positive effect. So fun increases that positive effect. It shows that when people are in good mood, they outperform in tasks. On the contrary, this organized research that we discussed can at times be challenging. Peter Fleming, he did this research where he actually shows that organized fun, these holiday parties, this kind of stuff, can have a reverse impact if people perceive them as inauthentic within the organization, right? So all to say, fun has overwhelmingly been proven to drive positive effect that drives engagement, drives performance. Yet, many people are scared to be fun at work. Whether that is because they fear how others will judge them, that they will believe that, oh, this person is not serious enough. Or because in their brains, they have separated work from life. And they say, this is my work persona, and this is my life persona. And what has always challenged me in that, you've spent so many hours at work in your life that if at work you're not yourself, you end up spending your whole life, a big part of it, not being yourself.
Yeah.
So all that all that things to say that why more people, more leaders can be fun. What is something you would say about you faced being fun? I'm sure you've been fun many years. So what is something that you've dealt with and how have you managed that throughout your career?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot in there. I think it's almost worth defining fun, isn't
Sorry.
it? I need to manage. Anyone ever works for me here? It's not like I don't go around the office wearing a clown hat and pranking people and stuff.
Of course.
And actually, I mean, those two pieces of research, I don't think disprove each other. What they prove is that a lot of people don't like organised fun. I mean, I love the office Christmas party. I enjoy going to that. There's some people for whom that is just a nightmare and it doesn't work with their social commitments or it doesn't work with their family commitments or they just hate it. And I actually think that when businesses have engagement surveys and fun, people say, oh, how do I make this more fun? That is often the answer, and it has a role. I mean, it has a role for building teams. I think those things are good, but they're not. They're not really how you make day-to-day life fun. You make day-to-day life fun in some of what you're talking about in terms of just much smaller things. Now, I still have very serious professional meetings. We meet with markets, we meet with presidents. Sometimes I think our meetings with our very, very senior people are unnecessarily serious. And at times, for whatever reason, you get a meeting where people are just a little bit more relaxed and joking. You're still getting through stuff, talking business, sorting, making important decisions.
Of course.
But somehow if you get a slightly more friendly vibe, even things when you have different teams, different regions disagreeing on stuff, it all makes it better. I think for me, there's just something about, I really think that point you make about being two different people in your life and in your work, etc., is quite a powerful theme of my life, of my career. I mean, I would say even someone who's quite fun in the office, for sure I am, for sure, sometimes what I get up to on a Friday night at a Harry Styles concert, dancing away, it's not exactly the same way I act when I arrive on Monday morning back in the office. But I think it's a bit exhausting to try and be two totally different people.
Right.
And actually, from a really personal perspective, as a gay man, I grew up a lot of my life being two different people. The first 20 plus years of my life, I was two very different people. One mainly to myself, and one to other people. And then there was a time in my life where I was two almost entirely different people. Whether you were talking to my evangelical Christian friends or my new gay friends, that was that breaks you. I was not a happy person at the time. It's exhausting. And the truth, I wasn't exactly being fake with these people. This is still a big part of who I am. Like, not everything about me is so-and-so. But there was something exhausting in having to bring that up. And for me, I bring that mindset to the office. I'm quite fairly out and proud and stuff, and I want to be myself in the office. I think it's important. I think when I think about fun, one of the things that I would most say is it's about encouraging your team to be themselves. Now, some people in your team may not be fun, and that's okay. You can be the sassy, always going to say something negative. I've had teams where there's always someone who's going to say something negative at everything, and people laugh with them and joke. You know, that's fine. Not everyone has to be like the yay. But being able to be at least a good version of yourself, balanced by the fact we have work to do, we have business to do. We're not there to play Nerf guns. It's not like this sort of Google world. I don't think Google does it, where you have to go and play ping pong all the time and stuff. Yeah. But being yourself to work, and I think almost like the counter example is at times I have people who do the opposite. They seem to bring negative. They seem to bring challenge. They seem to make it their
ultra serious,
ultra negative, ultra challenging. And I'm probably how do you have the energy? I'm too busy doing work to have that much energy to want to be negative about things. But also, I don't really see how they think that kind of gets the best out of people, out of teams, out of the other people they have to work with. I once. Mondelez, maybe a company I shan't name. You can edit that, no, don't. It was the one time I sort of had a work nemesis. Someone who was weirdly did a similar job to me but on a different team, and in some weird way there was a dynamic where we competed for projects and stuff. And I was just always that's random, but okay. And I would invite him or her to things and say, oh, come to this thing, and try and be as friendly as possible. And often I thought they had slightly weird ideas about things. I didn't fully agree with them, but I was well, okay, we're on the same team. And they had almost the opposite attitude, which was to try and take me down, or I would never get invited to anything. They would always try and cut me out of stuff, or really actively speak up about how wrong I was about stuff and things. And I found it very exhausting that they had the energy to do that. But I think overall, people just preferred working on my projects and my things, because they were we'd rather work in a place where it's positive and we're all trying to help each other. And we are all on the same team here. We are trying to make things better, than I want to be part of a team that actively goes out there to take other teams down and stuff. So there's a time and a place for everything. There are serious things. I've worked through restructures. I've worked through really challenging conversations. Time when business isn't as good. In some of those moments, perhaps humour isn't always the answer. Though my husband would tell you I do use humour in very inappropriately serious moments. So maybe it always is the answer.
So I think just one point I wanted to touch upon, many points, but one thing I wanted to clarify is what you said about, it's not about, being dressed as a clown or playing games within the office, and that many companies have actually tried to create a bit of a playground office. Yeah. And research also suggests that that's a very tricky place. It's a tricky place to go in that route. And what's really important about fun is authenticity. Yeah. Because the moment you're not authentically fun, people can spot that, right? And I think what I've really liked about you, and I think what I found inspiring, I wanted to talk about today, and it's clear that your manager values the same thing in you, and you even yourself value the same thing in you, which is great, is that it's really about just being a nice human being that creates a positive environment in the workplace, right? And it's the same as if you want to create a nice environment at home because you believe that works better, why wouldn't the same logic apply to work? Why at home, it's very obvious, you don't want to be...
I really want to do an interview with some of the people who, no names mentioned, but I think really thrive on being negative in the office. I just want to know why.
Yeah, and I've been thinking, oftentimes, work, especially in the past, has been associated a lot with power. You want to gain power, you want to gain status. And it felt a lot of the times that status is associated with that seriousness. And you've seen that a lot in politicians, that sometimes they try to be overly serious, and And then at times,
foreign politics is a bit weird. We're quite keen on having less serious people running the
exactly,
world these days.
exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. It seems that many times people tried not to be serious, and even if their politics were not that good, people just got attached to that fun.
There's a warmth and an energy. And
exactly.
Exactly. Magnetism.
So if you have the good policies, you're a good professional, you're great at your work, it just benefits you and benefits the organization to create a nice environment.
Yes.
That's what it seems.
That's quite a beautiful message. I think one of the things that kind of came out a little bit, like people have very different ideas of what a nice environment is. Correct. And that's totally fine.
Correct.
There are people who do want to do that segmentation thing. Like for them, it works better to come in 9 to 5. Oh, we wish, and do their job, leave it behind, go to their friends, whatever, their family, the kids, whatever it is outside of that, and they enjoy that segmentation. Maybe it helps them. There are people for whom not being able to shut off from work is a nightmare, and people have different ideas of how relaxed and interesting they want to be. And actually, without making everything in my life about me being a gay man, I do think being in some way different makes you a bit more a bit more conscious of that. And I think if you're going to be a leader and you're going to try and create fun is a nice work environment. Part of that is you have to think about what nice is for different people.
Right.
And I think I don't think anyone ever really goes to set out saying I want to make a terrible work environment. But for quite a long time, white men like myself ran every company in the world, and sometimes a stereotypical view of what fun is, it's Friday night beers and drinks out till 1 a.m, and you come home totally drunk and it's great and it's wonderful. Is actually not a lot. A lot of people don't have that idea of fun. A lot of younger people, a lot of people with family, etc. And so I think that's sort of an extreme example. But in all aspects of trying to make a good team where people enjoy being there, you have to have some degree of understanding that what people will enjoy and what makes their life balanced and good and supportive. And they may not all want to joke with their manager. Some of them might just want a manager who's fine with the fact that they've had an issue with the kids and they have to leave work at 3:00 and isn't going to ask a single question about it because just go. Yeah. And I think there are different elements of how, and anyone, if I was a totally, straight white middle class man, I could do that as well. You could have empathy as well. But I think it comes somewhat more natural to some people than others. And I think you have to work on it. And it's not forced. It's not that I've never sat down with a spreadsheet and been right, here's my 20 people.
How do I make it fun?
This is their fun and this is their thing. But it's in meetings, understanding the people who will joke around, the people who will want something serious. I used to have, thankfully I've never had 25 one-on-ones, but I used to have 12 direct reports, and I would have a weekly or bi-weekly one-on-one with all of them. And each of those meetings would be strikingly different. Some of them would be very much them formally updating me. Some of them would feel like a therapy session. Some of them I'd be telling them more. And all of that is it's not so much about fun, but it's about empathy and understanding what makes a good working environment for people. And some part of understanding that, knowing that, being aware that, you might work with people who are wired and think and do things very differently. Right. Is how you actually end up with authentic fun, because any organized form of fun, there are always, you open up a ping pong table in the office. There are certain people for whom that's brilliant, that's great, they love that. Yeah. There are many people for whom there's nothing more embarrassing in their life than trying to play sport in front of their colleagues or something. So any organized fun inevitably works for some people and not others. It's not that it's inherently bad. And so somehow fun or, good culture, bringing it back maybe to what I said at the start, good culture comes from understanding, you can have a culture that allows different people to enjoy coming to work, even if they want different things. An inclusive culture. From the critically reviewed, inclusive marketing.
No, for sure. Honestly, it's very interesting what you said, because especially this concept of when you watch these movies, the Wall Street movies, these famous ones, and then they're work hard, very serious, very strict, and then party hard. Yeah. Go all out, have fun in a way, which could be fun, right? But there is also an approach where you can work hard, play hard, and merge that. And you can just have
party in the office.
Just get drunk in the office. No, that's not the message we want to. That's not the message, of course, we want to push. But no, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I think culture is an important thing. I think the bigger a team you lead, the harder it is to shape. Like if you're the CEO of an entire company,
of course,
it's quite hard to shape the entire culture through things that aren't forced fun. But you shape the culture of your bubble and your team,
right?
And that in its turn filters down. And if you create a world where everything is deadlines and chaos and stress and everyone's pitted against each other, that pits down. And I think from a culture perspective, from an inclusion perspective, from anything, you always have a little bubble of, even if you're the most junior person in a company, you have a bubble of influence in like your peers and the people you engage, and you can choose how you use that influence. And the more senior you become, the more there are people you directly manage, directly control, or indirectly engage with, who you can do things, whatever that wider culture is. And obviously, you need to work for a company which somehow you believe in some part of the overall culture, but you create your own world within that. I think if you have enough people individually trying to make their bubble of a company nice, you end up with a nice company. Right.
Jerry, this approach that we just been talking about is definitely having an impact, and it's definitely, for me, one of the reasons it's been impactful is it's relatively unique. Not many leaders act in that way. I want to ask you, throughout your career, have you ever felt challenged because you chose this approach to work? Have you ever felt like about this specific energy that you bring? Have you ever felt that you either were being challenged or people wouldn't take you as seriously? Or
I think part of empathy, just through wider sense, you understand there are always rooms in which or conversations or meetings in which the fun is less appropriate or less welcomed.
Of course.
And I think not having spoken about how you should always bring your whole self to work, for sure. The conversation I have on my team meeting can be very different to the conversation I have with like the CMO and president if the next call I'm on or something.
Right.
I don't think I bring, because I don't bring like such a like clown energy to the world. I don't think, maybe you can find some people who disagree. I don't think I've ever been like, oh my gosh, there's like Jerry and his like crazy team of like wackos who are like doing weird stuff. Right. I think I've always had positive teams, and we've had surveys and things where you get good scores, and people are like, oh, how do we bring more of that kind of thing? But I think there's a time and a place for anything. I've even like GSK or now Helium, my work was overall a more serious company. For whatever reason, it was more serious. We were probably versus like Diageo, which is like a drinks country. Their culture is people go to the bar several days a week. There are companies where naturally speaking the culture is more social or more fun, etc. Right. And the sort of the degree of formality and professionalism bends. I don't think I've ever worked in a company where I've felt like I can't be myself to a decent extent, to which I can't within my own team and my own meetings and my own space create that. That's because what we're defining as fun is, I think, more just humanity and warmth, etc. I think there probably are risks. There probably are, like, if you're seen joking around a bit in the office, but it's a part of who I am, and I don't think hugely. And I think if anything, there's a lot of upside that. Without sort of sounding it cocky, I think you end up with more people who have your back and who think, I don't even know what he does, but he's like a good part of the team and he's a good, I think you end up with more goods coming out of being a sort of generally good citizen in your company.
Well, research agrees.
Well, there you go.
Agrees.
Maybe there are some people out there sat at their keyboards being like, why are they laughing? Why are they sending gifts to each other? It's like, maybe. Maybe those guys. Good to know. Go for it.
But it's authentic, Jerry. It's authentic. When it comes from you, it's
we've obviously had fun here in this chat. So, It's a fun. Sometimes you work very well with colleagues, and you get to a difficult challenge where actually having the chat and the fun is like, oh no, we're 45 minutes into our hour meeting, and actually we do have to deal with some like serious things. So there's there's a challenge there.
Of course, I mean there is a balance, right?
Yeah.
But I think for me, what I said before as well, I think what you mentioned is that we spend so much time at work that it's just a pity if we're not who we can be, who we can be at home. That oftentimes and I'm sure you've heard this expression. I've heard it like so many times, which is like, I dislike this person. Oh, but personally, they're very nice, but at office I really don't like, not their work, but I don't like how they behave.
Yeah.
But yet personally they're so nice. Well, maybe it's worth bringing that personality, and it's not easy. It's really not easy, especially it requires courage, and it requires leaders that can bring that message.
Yeah, I think the more senior you come as well, the more delicate that balance becomes. Because if you're like the CEO of a business or something,
right?
There's but I've worked for CEOs who actively bring a warmth to their business, and I've worked for CMOs and CEOs who don't. And
clearly your manager approves.
Maybe we should do some wider research on, I don't know how, you'd have to fun score the CEO and track the commercial success of the business.
Potentially.
Could be an interesting. I think, and
that's a nice.
I think there's to my point about people like different things. There's a counter argument here, which is that some people, the last thing they would want in life was to be like the class clown, the entertainment, the bring the fun.
Of course.
And that doesn't mean that they can't be good managers, can't be good leaders, can't be a great CEO. It just they have different strengths. Hopefully, I think in an ideal world, people for whom that isn't them, I have people in my teams, for instance, who aren't the fun ones. You create a world in which both can thrive, and you create a world in which you're quite a serious leader, but you don't mind people on your team that are, or even you empower them. I've had bosses who have been a bit like, Jerry, I'm not going to be the one who organises the social. Could you? Because it's my idea of hell, and I will come for one drink and I will leave. But you've got this. And I think even then, understanding your strengths and weaknesses, and where in your own team, in your own colleagues, you have people who match what you bring.
Of course. Of course.
And again, that's where culture. I think fun is an interesting word, but it's about culture, authenticity, allowing people to bring their right strengths, and building teams somewhat deliberately where you have
and
people.
Positive effect. I think that's the key. I think that's the driver, the mechanic. I think that brings the good performance. And
but there'd be something toxic. It almost becomes like a sort of comedy movie or something, where you have like a team that's so fun that everyone has to like fake practical jokes on each other and like has to come into work. I think one of the great things about having a team that was fun is that, I have calls on my, this is a strange pivot, but I have calls on my direct reports cry at me, and not for things that I've done, I'd like to clarify, but like, because you create a world where you're open, it's not that everything is fun and roses,
Of course.
The job is really hard, this is crushing me, what's happening with this reorg, I'm really upset. You've earned from me like enough trust, enough openness that I'm willing to be very open, very raw in front of you. I think is a I don't know if I'd make it a KPI that people cry in front of me, but it's it's a sort of there's a sort of.
Brené Brown talks a lot about she has this very famous book called Dare to Lead, and she talks a lot about the concept of vulnerability. And I think what you're describing is a lot about that. You need a vulnerable leader to create a team that is able to be okay to be vulnerable and just be open, rather than hide away things that create a bit this negativity, because you cannot be yourself, right? Because you have to hide things. Yes, one of the things that I find most hypocritical is overly strong a word, but I've heard a lot over the time. I've heard a lot of leaders. A thing that a lot of people say is, don't just celebrate your successes, also celebrate your failures and things have gone wrong. It's a great message, right? Said by a leader who has never in your life ever accepted they've got anything wrong. Correct. So I think that kind of thing where it's an action, it's not words. It's an act. Yeah, it's 100%. Please, team, tell me the stuff you're doing wrong.
it's not as motivating or as authentic as, guys, this project, it's gone totally wrong. Oh, I had this meeting, it's gone totally wrong. This is what I've learned from it. This is what I do. Don't just beat yourself up and make yourself seem like you're terrible at your job. I think there's something in a degree of now. You manage people, you have to professionalism. You can't always be like, oh my God, I hate everything about my job, and I'm thinking, find the right peers to have those conversations with.
Right.
This has been a tough week, and this project's really hard, isn't it?
And it's completely okay, and it makes sense. You have sometimes that things don't work out.
Yeah.
Because
not for me, but
not for you, but
no, lots of things in my life haven't worked out. Some at the cost of millions of dollars. So
but it just like it makes no sense if you try things. Some of them will not work out, and that's like okay to share that, because then you create a space where a team can feel comfortable to do the same thing. It reminds me of this. I had this painting, / picture, that it was like a boat is always safe in the harbor, but that's not what boats are made for. So the moment you kind of don't create an environment where people can feel comfortable to fail in a way, they will just avoid action. They will just avoid to act. They will just avoid to experiment. They will avoid to, and which are the things that ultimately drive growth and uniqueness in a company.
I agree, and it's hard because failures are from a human perspective, even from a process perspective. Like when something's gone wrong or it's failed, you move on to the next thing. It's not when something is successful, of course you have the grand tour, and no one wants to dwell on the things that fail, but finding a degree of which I think some people think, oh, tell me your failings means I have to write a case study of a thing that didn't work. Like some of those examples, like just being a bit honest about, I had a tough meeting, or the local market said no. It's like, oh well. Some smaller things. Doesn't always have to be like a huge debrief and like once a year we do a presentation on 10 things we failed with this year, which are never real failures. They're always like, this didn't work, but we learned so much more that it's better now. So yeah, I'm intrigued. Is there any studies on failure? Probably.
Potentially.
Oh, I think for sure there are, especially in startup culture and stuff. There's like a startup that isn't willing to fail and things fails, and one that's willing to adapt and learn and change. For sure you have to. Maybe you can create a company that's just like perfect from day one and grows to be the biggest company in the world. But what's the biggest? It's Apple currently. Depends when we're filming this. They failed. They had a whole time when the business was falling apart. Things were going wrong. They learned a lot, and and they also made those goggle things that no one wants. So. But one day we'll probably be the most popular product in the world. So.
Jerry, that was so nice. Like that was so.
It was fun.
That was so authentic and fun, right?
Look at us.
It's been like really, really nice, and also the conversation, but also the times we've been working together. I think I take a lot of positives out of that.
Do you think you did things to make your office more fun whilst you were there? Would your colleagues say you made the office more fun?
It's tough to say. Because I also feel like I belong in that group of people that you described. That I don't think I am necessarily a very fun person. And that's why I completely understood, because I never felt the pressure to be kind of fun, clownish, make jokes and stuff, because it's really not me in a way. I find myself, even on my free time and stuff, to be relatively more on the serious end.
Look at us. Look at free time.
But I definitely try to push as much as I can, and I definitely didn't do a very good job, especially in my first year at work. But
work can be very hard, work can be very intense, and the idea of being fun.
But
it's
one of the things that was for me very important was to try to create as much as I could an environment where no unnecessary stress is needed.
Yeah.
That we could work, but be chill about how we work.
Yeah. Different ways of asking your colleagues for things.
Exactly. And I think a lot of we have that also from from Cyprus and like Greece, you see people and oftentimes you would think they're not working.
Yeah.
Just because they vibe a little bit more chill. And I know there is a lot of chats about us Mediterraneans being lazy. But
they got the stuff done. They just also, yeah.
They work a lot.
Yeah.
Many people work a lot. Many people don't, but many people work a lot.
In any country, in any world, there are people who work more and work less. Yeah.
And it's something that I personally tried, and some days are easier to do it than others. Sometimes stress gets the better out of you as well. But I'll leave stress for another podcast episode.
I'm pretty sure, not least because I now literally have taken your desk and have already had a number of comments, that your colleagues would find you fun in the broadest sense of the word. I mean, your work colleagues and your friends, well, they can be the same, but they're not necessarily the same. But in a group of friends, if you have a group of friends where everyone is the fun one, it's a nightmare.
Of course.
Not everyone can organise everything and do anything, but that doesn't mean that the other friends aren't bringing something amazing to the party. It doesn't mean that some of the other colleagues are. You're never going to be the person that organises something, but they're dependent and they're good and they add to, there are different ways.
I've been called the most fun person to bully. I don't know if that's a compliment. I take it as a big compliment.
That's a podcast to unlock in itself. I think in the right sense, told by someone who means it in the right way, then there's something great about colleagues knowing that you are someone who is happy to go in on a joke and positive. Of course. Obviously, that could be a horrible, toxic thing that we would never in any way encourage. Actual bullying, especially at the workplace. Yeah.
But no, it's
caveat.
Caveats. Really, Jerry, it's been a pleasure. I've learned a lot, and I hope this podcast was also pretty fun. It's
been fun. Working with you's been fun. The podcast's been fun. I look forward to continuing my subscription to it. Of course,
and maybe as a last, more personal question, you've done a lot in your life. You've worked with many people. You've moved, across different countries, different companies, experiment with different things. If I was to ask you, what has been one thing that has been your muse, your inspiration for who you are today, for who you want to be? What's one thing that keeps you going?
I have an answer. I have to Google it quickly. Edit this. I have two different answers. I was thinking earlier I might want to say this, and I can't remember.
I will not edit this, by the way.
This is me not knowing someone's name. I already know their name. Anyway, the correct answer is my husband, my mother, and my dog. In answer to your question, I'm amused and inspired by people around me. The only sort of, when I think, maybe I'm taking the question too seriously, when I try and think of like a more professional, serious muse, the person who in many ways steered, and I don't even work in marketing, one of my most formative memories, there's a TV show called Queer as Folk.
Okay.
It was a UK TV show, and they made a US version of it. It was on TV when I was in my teenage years, starting to know I was gay, but really not knowing what that meant or anything. I grew up in a very conservative Christian evangelical family where I had no idea what these weird feelings were, and for weird reasons my parents allowed me to have a TV in my room, and I'd sometimes watch it late at night, and I stumbled upon this show, which is at times quite sexy and all sorts of stuff, but you learn, oh my gosh, there were like people like me having wonderful lives. Fun show. Someone created that. A guy called Russell T. Davies created that. At the time, absolutely, this didn't cross my mind at all. About 10, 15 years later, I saw him do a panel when he was talking about like making that show.
Right.
He's gone on to make lots of other things. He's the guy who brought back Doctor Who. He's done lots of queer, lots of other forms of drama. He's very successful. And he talked about making that show, which at the time was very, it was a time when in the UK it was illegal to teach about LGBT rights in school. Right. It wasn't a terrible country, but it was, it was complex. Making that show that was quite out there. And he talked about how it's on a commercial channel. It has to have adverts in it. So there have to be advertisers who appear in those breaks. And he said that the evening show, not his show in particular, but every evening's like late night content level was sponsored by this beer brand. And the daughter of the guy who owned the beer brand saw the show, thought it was the most horrific thing ever, and demanded that they cancelled the show, and called up like Channel 4, the people who ran it, and said, if you don't take it off the air, we pull the sponsorship of everything. You know, it's their main sponsor, lots of money.
Right.
And the channel and him stood firm. They said, no, we're keeping it. The beer band quit. They stopped sponsoring it. I guess they found other people, etc. But that was one of the first times in my life where I thought, like, this industry I'm starting to work in, this world I'm starting to work in, like, we're advertisers, we're storytellers, we're marketers. We've talked a lot about inside the business, but my job in marketing is to send messages that, you know, I've created messages that billions of people have seen over my career. And I think, like, that just really inspired me that, yes, I mean, marketing, you're a terrible salesperson selling like alcohol, drugs, fast food, chocolate, you know, a lot of those things, especially alcohols, all those things, you have considerations, is it good, you know, balance. But you're also communicating to millions of people, and you have the opportunity in some small way to actually not just influence the people you work with, but this whole wider world. And he was like genuinely this like slight epiphany where I was like, that's an amazing person who's used his like creative passion, used his talent. He himself is a gay man. He's obviously specifically chosen to tell those stories. He specifically decided to, you know, get far. And probably he went quite a long way in his career before he did, because, you know, life and how you get there. But that really struck me as, and that's why I got involved in like inclusive marketing and the World Federation of Advertisers, and like in some small way being like, yes, my muse has been like, I like testing out new things and going further in digital, etc. I like helping brands grow and build businesses, and it feels great when you have success. But actually, I work in something where, you know, whether people believe it or not, we have quite a big influence on the world, and that's quite cool. The content we make, the advertising we fund. And so he's always been a bit of an inspiration to me. And sometimes when I'm like, you know, and it's a bit overselling it, like when I'm writing my meta playbook, I don't necessarily think, oh my gosh, I'm making the world a better place. But that was like inspired me that you can have a career that commercially successful, you're paid well, you create great content, you know, but that stays true to your values of who you are, that you bring yourself
authenticity
to the office, authenticity. No idea what the question was, but somehow got that in as an answer. Oh, Muse.
I think you gave a perfect answer. Jerry, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. It was great.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please consider subscribing to my channels and share my work on your social media. Until our minds meet again, enjoy the inner wonder you're creating. Thanks everybody. See you next episode.